Bitcoin is coming back and weak hands are gone. I think in the thumbnail I put like strong hands or something like that in there. And the reason is I think this is the lowest sentiment, and I feel like maybe you guys can chime in, like if you've seen something worse than that. But this is the lowest sentiment I have ever seen since I'm doing Twitter and YouTube videos. I haven't been around in 2022 as a content creator. I was only a Bitcoiner back then. So I don't know. Is this the lowest sentiment of like people are dumping quantum FUD, all of those things, weirdly, all of a sudden, randomly in the community? How do you guys think about the sentiment currently in Bitcoin?
I think people are. I think people were really, really worried when it was at 60K. I think it's getting better now. Like I feel like at that point a few weeks ago, who knows? Maybe we go lower, but it feels like the fear and greed index kind of. It was accurate because that was when it was the lowest, and that's when I got all the bears coming out. Like we got Peter Schiff running Victory Labs. It was like it was probably the best time to buy.
Yeah, I definitely think it was worse like not that long ago, actually, as far as like peak fear. But it's kind of like it hasn't gotten better as like people are more bullish or anything. It's just people can only live in that sort of emotional space for so long before they move on to something else. So it's almost worse in the way of like people not caring as much. But I think people have just kind of moved on. But I mean, fear has to be definitely in the streets for quantum FUD to come back. Like I saw a tweet again. Like I don't know if you guys saw the stuff that Nick Carter posted about Google wrote an article about specifically talking about quantum with cryptocurrencies and private public key peering. But I saw a tweet that perfectly summed it up. That's like, but if the price was up on Bitcoin, this wouldn't even reach anybody's timeline because it's totally just like a strike when the fear is hot kind of thing with those kind of headlines, in my opinion. I don't know what you guys think about quantum, but I think it's a ridiculous fear argument.
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it seems like I get what you guys are saying in terms of like I think it was about a month ago now, it was just lots of negativity. But again, we talked about the sense that all energy is good energy, negative or positive. So I feel like it was a good thing for Bitcoin, even though a lot of people are shitting on it. My comment section was just full of gotchas and actuallys and 0-hour dipshits. But I did a stream this morning and there was probably 100 people in there between YouTube, Rumble, Nostr. And I haven't seen that level of people in my streams since pretty much November 2024, which was when it was running up. Trump was about to get elected. Everybody's going crazy for Bitcoin. That was kind of like the last time I had triple digit numbers watching my live streams every morning. So I don't know. It feels like something's going on right now. It seems like people are starting to feel it more. I think there's more information about there in terms of like the connections between AI and Bitcoin. I saw that some AI went rogue. I forget what company it was, but the AI went rogue and started allocating the company's resources from AI to mining. They said cryptocurrency, but it had to have been Bitcoin. So like the AIs are trying to figure out how to self-sustain themselves, and they see that Bitcoin's like the way to do that, which is really cool. I haven't had time to like fully dive into that yet. I was just kind of looking for it right now. But yeah, I mean, I think we're in a good spot right now, boys.
Yeah, it's just first principle thinking, right? I mean, we've got some questions here about talking about the FUD, the quantum stuff. And again, Nick Carter's done a lot of good stuff for this space. He's also a venture capitalist, right? He's also, he's got some different, follow the money. What Bitcoiners do best is follow the money analysis. So where are you getting money from? Who are your sponsors? Go on down the list, right? We've joked about in the last 6 years that scientists or doctors should have to wear on their lab coat who's giving them money. And that, it's a Charlie Munger, show me the incentives and I'll show you the outcome. And so this is the world we live in. And what we hope with Bitcoin is that we can flip those incentives of society and the malinvestment starts going away, just naturally healing over time. And again, from first principles thinking, the quantum FUD, again, Bitcoin's a $1.5 trillion asset protocol. If there's quantum fears, the U.S. military, 13 aircraft carriers are going to be the first thing someone to go after. I'm not going to go after the Bitcoin. I'm going to go after Jamie Dimon and J.P. Morgan Chase. I'm going to go after the U.S. government. I'm going to have to go over. I'm going to go through the military. Like, I wouldn't be attacking Bitcoin. And again, at the end of the day, these things are already being worked on. There was, Joe, I don't know if it was, us talking about this the other day or who was talking about this, but there's already, some stuff being worked on, multiple different initiatives to shore that up. And we know to go forward, Bitcoin is the only thing that's anti-fragile enough to actually take on the attacks of quantum. The centralized nodes of the fiat legacy monetary system are never going to be able to handle this. I mean, just in the last week, I've seen like 10 different, centralized honeypot hacking, of people's information, of data breaching. That stuff is just going to continue in a world where people aren't incentivized to actually, the US government is not incentivized, or any government for that matter, because they just print over their mistakes with your inflation, with your time and energy. And it just happens through inflation, socialize the losses and privatize the gains. This is how this cycle just happens over and over again. So just coming from first principles, again, Bitcoin is the least of your worries at the end of the day, but it's also the only thing that's going to actually make it through and be able to change quick enough to actually handle quantum threats going forward. So again, like someone said, the ETH guy wrote the article and we talked about this in the last week too. Nothing positive in the legacy system is ever said about Bitcoin. So remember, that's the frame of mind. That's why Bitcoin's a 4-letter word, because it's only for 17 years have you heard bad things, negative press, FUD about Bitcoin, when in reality, if you were a greenie, you would have found this after 17 years. You would say, hey, if I actually cared about the climate, if Greta cared about the climate, she would have found Bitcoin. It's the only thing that cleans up, which we just saw the other day. Daniel Betten shared the guy who's one of the biggest, climate guys in the world. And he said, yeah, Bitcoin mining is the only thing that actually clears up the methane gas. I mean, so like the signal's all there if people actually want to do the work, but we're headline readers and we get scared. We're humans, we're emotional, and it's first principles.
Yeah. The way I look at the quantum FUD is pretty simple. It's all theoretical. And because it's theory, it means it's uncertain, because nobody knows. It's sort of like Schrodinger's cat, Schrodinger's cat is what I'm thinking of. It sort of exists and doesn't exist. And so with that comes uncertainty, and that's what breeds the fear. But it's also beyond that, just even more simply, we theoretically have the cryptography that is quantum resistant, and we don't have the computers that can break any sort of cryptography. So why are we worried about something that doesn't exist when we have something that does exist that protects against it? Just because Bitcoin hasn't adopted that doesn't mean that it couldn't, and it will when it's needed to. So I don't understand, like, why worry about a gun that doesn't exist when you're already wearing a bulletproof vest, basically.
Yeah, that's it.
I think go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, I mean, just like a simple thing, like don't use addresses, don't reuse them. Like there's actually very simple things to combat the quantum, and like old wallets, maybe, stuff from 15 years ago might be in trouble, possibly, so like, they're so like out there that it's just fear, uncertainty, and doubt. That's all it is.
Yeah.
And I think if you got a wallet from the early days, like 2011, and you're sitting on like 10,000 Bitcoin that you mined in 2011 on your laptop, you're probably just going to see this. Yeah, I mean, you've been through everything at that point. Like that's 15 years pretty much of Bitcoin. You've seen it all, you've heard it all. But you're like, okay, well, maybe this quantum thing's legitimate. What am I going to do? Just move it to a new address. Like it's really not that complicated. You don't have to go and spend a whole bunch of money on equipment and hire a team. You just move it to an updated address that's supposed to be more or less susceptible to quantum stuff. And these guys aren't stupid. Of course they're doing that. And maybe that's some of the older coins that have been moving. Maybe that's what it was. So I think it's actually really good for Bitcoin, because we're going to be able to see a much clearer picture of which coins are actually lost. That's kind of how I see this playing out. We're going to have a better idea of what the actual supply is, the available supply, which is the denominator in this whole equation. And the more accurate that number is, I think the better Bitcoin is as a money. Because you look at fiat, you look at gold, we have no idea how many dollars exist, how many gold ounces exist. It's a complete guess. Bitcoin, we know the maximum is going to be 21 million, but we still don't know how many of those coins are actually available or how many of those sats are available. So I think it's actually a good thing. People look at it as a bad thing, but I actually think it's a good thing for Bitcoin, the quantum stuff. And like Brandon said, I think everybody here in the chat and in this video right now, we've seen somebody in the last couple of weeks, myself included, who have been hacked. And it's just like everything on the internet, I think, is just kind of up for grabs right now. It's going to get worse. And Bitcoin is the best protection against that. So it's kind of a no-brainer. Going back to like the first principle stuff, like it's where people should be. It's the only safe haven, I feel like, on the internet right now.
I was just watching the chat and I love that comment. Are people without facial hair allowed to buy Bitcoin?
No.
I know. I was about to shave earlier too, so I'm glad I didn't. There we go.
But I think it's really interesting because we have always FUD waves. So there's the environmental FUD. We have now the quantum FUD. There was always something going on, and there's always like small FUDs here and there. There's like smaller waves, and then there's like big waves that kind of make the headlines. That like your uncle comes to you and says, "Hey, but isn't Bitcoin like bad XYZ FUD that's currently going on?" And I think there's like something big underneath all of that. It's that new technologies, things that kind of revolutionize a system, have to prove that they are 100x better than the existing system. For example, if we say like cars that are driven by humans versus self-driving cars. Self-driving cars have to be like 100 times or 1,000 times more safe and better than a human driver for people who say, yeah, I think it's way better to just like have the self-driving car than just like getting in a taxi or something like that, because we have this fear in there. We want to keep our systems as they are. There's like an incentive to keep things as they are, conserving them. And Bitcoin in that sense is kind of challenging the current system. And so we have to be better in every single way. And so as Bitcoin are always like frustrated, like, why are you worried about the quantum FUD with our Bitcoin if every single bank account is way more unsecure than our Bitcoin? It's because we are the kind of challenging system, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I think the main difference though, Robin, that I would say is like with cars, people driving them themselves versus self-driving cars. Like for me, I see Fiat as Bitcoin's already 100x better. It's just that people don't know that yet. Like we're already there, because we know one thing for sure is that Fiat takes zero to produce. It's a complete illusion. It's been the greatest lie perpetrated on humanity in history. And they're just going to continue printing more units. Those units are going to be worth less. We know that for sure. Bitcoin, on the other hand, fixes that. So it's infinitely better than that. It's just where we are right now is people learning that, figuring that out. And that's kind of like the leg that we're in right now. It's like we're here. We talk about this stuff every day. We're in this world right now. But most people aren't. Like you go to any city and just have conversations with people, and you can see pretty clearly of how early we are. It doesn't feel like that when we're in chat rooms and videos like this, but it's just we're on a whole nother planet almost, it feels like some days.
Look at the community too. You know, I think part of it, this is why going to, whether it's going to meetups, peer-to-peer, this is how Bitcoin spreads, right? Peer-to-peer. And whether it's peer-to-peer local stuff, it's what we're doing here, collaborations, it's people in the chat, it's the conferences. You generally see people that are probably on the chat here, us here, people going to conferences. These are the most ardent people. And so in saying all that, there's something to that. You know, like, why is that? You feel that compelled. You're incentivized to uphold the integrity of the network. So again, the legacy system is a zero-sum game. There's no reason to uphold the integrity of the network. I mean, look, you can't trust the voting systems. There's no way, just by the very existence of there's no auditing ability on anything we do, pretty much, whether it's a legacy banking system or voting or anything. How can you trust it, right? It's trust but verify. And Bitcoiners know that, but now the world is starting to wake up to this auditing, trust but verify. I see legacy news anchors, Glenn Beck, now talking about this, using the memes of Bitcoiners. And so it's a level set upgrade. The consciousness of people are starting to rise just across the board here, and it's going to slowly start permeating out. But again, look at the community. We go to conferences, we come to meetups, we do these things to spread what's actually happening, because a lot of people that get worried that I see personally are people that either haven't done a lot of homework, or maybe they're new, or they're not plugged in. And I don't mean day to day. You don't have to be plugged in day to day, but just like, hey, once a week, once a month, check in, what's going on, do some homework, figure out what's actually happening. Because a lot of us can sit here and talk about it very confidently. It's because we're in the system all the time. We're seeing what's going on. We're talking to other peers, other nodes in the system. We're seeing what's happening. And so that quells a lot of the fear right there. And that existing system, again, when you juxtapose it against that existing system, it's zero sum. Fiat is zero sum. They just paper over by using your time and energy to do it Oh, made a mistake. Oh, lost all your data. Oh, we lost all your wealth. Oh, we went to war again. Well, they just paper over it. They don't ask you, where Bitcoin is completely opposite of that. So the people in the system are incentivized to uphold the integrity of the system. And what I'm getting at with all this is, if there's a lot of people in the Bitcoin ecosystem that are worried about the FUD or worried about quantum, just as an example, then maybe that'd be something to start getting worried about. But I've seen zero people that I know that are hardcore Bitcoiners. They've been in for maybe at least over 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. Zero people in my life that are worried about quantum FUD. That should, again, that's that signal. And that's part of being a part of a robust anti-fragile social layer as well, where the existing system is completely detached from reality. They're just quite honestly shitheads, the Paul Krugmans of the world, politicians, all these people. How you can't trust them as far as you can throw them. They're constantly wrong, and then they're fudding our system. And so, like, again, you have to take all of that, and it's simplistic, right? At the end of the day, like, some of these things are not that complicated. It's just getting out of your own way, zooming out, and saying, "Hey, Occam's razor." Usually, the easiest answer is the correct answer.
The one thing that I disagree with, that what you said there, Brendan, was you said it's a zero sum game. It's actually a negative sum game, because there's always fees being taken out. There's inflation. Central banks are automatically going to take some value out of you. And then something else you said there, fiat is basically like it's a scam, right? I mean, it's used to paper over every mistake that governments make, that banks make. I agree with that. But something else that I thought of was, I think I mentioned this before, but on The Office, there's an episode where Kevin's like, a mistake plus 11 gets you home by 7. That's basically what fiat is, right? It's like, it's papering over the mistakes, and you just put in whatever numbers you want, as long as the end balance is right. That's all that matters. And that's what they do with fiat printing, right? So what they do is, the Federal Reserve is buying assets, toxic assets that are in the market, and nobody else wants to buy them. So what they do is they just print more dollars and they buy them, so that the market doesn't figure out that these assets are toxic and the people issuing them are toxic. And that's that K11, right? That K11 is basically just the fiat that they print. They print out as much fiat as they want to. And just for anybody who doesn't have context, it's basically like Kevin was an accountant in The Office, and he was, of course, in control of all their books. And to make sure that he didn't have to work longer than he had to, he would basically just make up numbers. That's essentially what fiat is, right? They just make up numbers.
Except they don't even tell us what the numbers are, though.
Yes, that's the thing, right? Kevin made up his own number called K11. Fiat is all made up. Like, that whole thing is made up. Like, exactly. They don't even tell us what the numbers are, and it's just wild, because people are falling for it. And they say that Bitcoin is a scam, right? Whereas Bitcoin is fully transparent. You can see everything that you want. You can see every single transaction that's ever happened on the Bitcoin network. And people say that fiat is the thing that we need to use. It's crazy.
That's a good
One
analogy.
thing-
I've never thought of that before.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what's happening with fiat in the real world. And it's this little microcosm concept in the American office. That's really funny.
We got some good question, boys. What do we want to do here? Do we want to what is this, our 7th one or 6th one? Mastermind?
Seventh one already. Yeah, I was actually already putting it down. The 2 questions, I think BIP 110 and Bitcoin adoption for medium exchange. I think those 2 that I saw, but there are many more that I probably not saw. So okay. I thought maybe we could even just use the first 20, 30 minutes to rant on whatever we want to rant on. But then we can actually take on questions. So if you guys want, we can already tackle one. Yep. Did you have a specific question in mind, Chua, like you want to have?
No, I just figured like the first 6 episodes we've done, we've just talked the whole time. So we should try to get some questions mixed in. We never ran out of things to talk about. I think the last week we could have ran for another 2 hours, but I do see 2, or are these from last week? They got to be from last week. Those starred ones in the chat?
The super chats?
Yeah.
Those are old, I think.
Okay.
That's crazy. I don't even see them anymore.
I see them.
Anyways.
The start, at least. Yeah, I see them.
Yeah. So, I mean, the quantum stuff for me, all the FUD, it's their only tool that they have. I think they know that. And it's not going to slow down.